our main man in When Freedom Came is called God Knows. Now, one of the things that people will see in my books is that I use unusual names. I'm just fascinated by the way we name our children as Zimbabweans, maybe as Southern Africans. But I think I understand why. You see, our names, our vernacular names were always generally had a meaning. Either as a thank you to God, there's a common name, Tendai, or Bongani Tindebele, which just means be thankful. Sometimes they are a message to a family member, not necessarily a positive message, but sometimes they're a message. A friend of mine told me he had a child called Kurai, which means grow up. And to me, it had never meant much until he told me that he gave the child that name because his in-laws were being childish. so now, when the whites came, they insisted that we should use Christian names or English names. In some cases, like the Catholic Church, they actually gave children, when they were baptized, they were then given new names, which were Christian names, some of which, we ended up with names like Wenceslas and Apollonia and so on. But I think what a lot of our parents did is they just translated what they wanted the message they wanted to convey in vernacular. Because the schools were insisting on English names, they just translated. Temba is a very common name, which means trust. So there's a lot of people called Trust in our society. There's a Shona name, Taurai, which it's not so easy to translate into English. But it really means, it just means speak. Or talk. But the hidden meaning is almost like if somebody feels like they're being talked about, like in the family, they just say, okay, you carry on talking. And I think that's what spawned names like Talk More and so on. So I'm fascinated. That's why I use these names. God Knows is a very common name. And usually a parent is probably saying, God knows what I'm going to give this child or whatever. It's a common name, but consider was I picked up the phone when I was at work, and
Consider is one of the characters in the book.
Yes. God Knows is, Consider is God Knows his wife. That name, I picked up the phone once at work, and there was a lady on the other side of the phone, and she wanted to speak to somebody who wasn't in the office at the time, and I asked if I could take a message, and they said, please tell them Consider phoned. And at first I thought, no, I didn't hear right. I said, can you please say that again? She said, Consider. I said, okay, CONSIDER. She said, yes. And at that point, I just thought, how does a parent name their child Consider? But I have come across a couple of Considers since. But I think also that comes from, again, we have English names like Constance, Consolata, Consider. It sounds to be in that. So sometimes we just use words. And another thing that I think is that English names that we were then forced to give our children, John, Mark, Paul, Simon, whatever, they were just words to us. They were meaningless. Our names had meaning. Then we were giving our children English names without meaning, at least to us. Benjamin. So, Paul, John, Frank, Frequency. They're just words. So I do know somebody called Frequency, by the way. So, so I'm just fascinated by these names. That's why I use these